Hey all, I wanted to circle back around with everybody. You've been talking about planning things out, right? Getting your schedule written out for the year. And as part of that, what is it that you need for equipment? Now, it's quite possible that there's equipment out there that you didn't even think about. For example, because I'm always a shoot and go kind of guy, right? Shooting on the run. I never thought about a stabilizer, for example. Didn't even think about them existing for that matter. Typically, they're used more for movies, right? Any of those movie sets that you see where there's a truck driving with a camera and somebody's driving the car. So they're in front of them with a truck, and that's how they're filming the car coming toward them. All of that stuff requires a stabilizer because if it didn't have a stabilizer, then the movement of the truck would cause the screen to shutter, right? Well, they make them for people too. Now, if you're looking to use something along those lines, for example, let's say you want to do a panorama at a wedding, and you want to do some video. You've got your digital camera, right? And you want to use all the capabilities of it. So now you want to take still photographs. You want to do some videography as well. Maybe you're going to do it on the same card. Maybe you're going to swap cards in and out to do it. If you're going to swap cards in and out to do it, make sure you've got a good solid metal case that you can pop those cards into. So when you put it in your pocket, it's there. The reason I say a nice metal case is because if you're shooting and you're not paying attention where you're going and you trip and you fall on your butt, you don't want to crush the case. But if you're going to swap, you're going to have extra cards anyway. Make sure you've got something solid that they're going to be held in. But if you're going to go with one of these stabilizers, I highly recommend that you rent one first. Now, you've heard me say this before about renting things, but here's why. I went and got one. I wanted to see what the stabilizer was like. I was a DJI stabilizer. It was heavy. Without proper strapping to your body to help take the weight of that off, it's very hard to do anything long term with it. You could do some great short term stuff, but it was a big, heavy thing. Now, it did a great job of stabilizing. I'm not going to take away from that. You put your camera in there, the gimbals are in there, you're all set to go. You even don't have to adjust the camera directly on the camera itself. It went through the controls on the stabilizer, so you could do all the adjustments that you needed to right from there. It's a great little device, very expensive, but very heavy. And in order to use that properly, in my opinion, you need to have some kind of harness on your body. And that's to take that weight off your arms so that you can use it for a longer period of time. But also bear in mind, if you're shooting a wedding or something like that, right? So you're going to be shooting things here and there, maybe some quick hits here and there, quick movies here and there, like the bride walking down the aisle. And you're going to be popping in and out with that. You don't want your arms to be fatigued from carrying around a stabilizer when you want to take shots that are now just photographs, because your arms are going to be fatigued. They're not going to be quite as solid. And the last thing you want is a blurred shot of the bride and groom because you're walking down the aisle with the bride or sitting in the background, taking that picture of the bride walking down the aisle toward the groom, perhaps from behind the minister, and using the focal length of your lens to keep her in focus as she walks towards, so she looks like she's in the same spot, but you're just adjusting that zoom so that she's getting closer and closer. And you can do all that. But again, if your arms are now fatigued from that, even though your camera's light, but your lenses aren't, you're going to be flipping over to now use your camera. It's going to get a little bit tough on your arms. And if the stabilizer isn't attached to you and hopefully out of the way when you're shooting, or able to be swapped out of the way when you're shooting, you got to do something with the stabilizer while you're taking photographs. Right? If you've got something that can just strap to you and maybe you can just flip it up, it's out of the way, and you can shoot, and then you can just pop things back into the stabilizer as needed, that'll work out best for you. But again, you're going to have to figure out which one is going to be the best for you and for your circumstances, what you want to do, what kind of photographs you want to take. Maybe you're a nature photographer and you'd love to go out there and get some pictures of the birds and things, but you'd also like to get some video of the birds. And having that stabilizer allows you to move and to follow whatever creature you want to follow, at the same time keeping that frame crisp, right? Keeping it stable. The gimbal on there keeps moving your camera around so that the camera is always focused in exactly the same way, and that's what you want in a stabilizer. You want it, the whole goal is if you tip a little bit one side or the other, that camera adjusts so it looks exactly dead center the entire time. Now, what else could you possibly want to use this year? And maybe it's something you want to add to your catalog of stuff. If you like to shoot outdoors, it's great to shoot outdoors. I love shooting outdoors. I do not have the ability to do this, unfortunately, but you may. And that is to set up an umbrella. Now, there's a couple of ways you can set up the umbrella. You can take your subject and move your subject into shade. So you're still outdoors, right? But you want to grab the light. And you can use umbrellas as, some umbrellas can be used as a reflective source. You could just use a regular reflector for it as well. But the other thing you can use an umbrella for is to put the umbrella up between the sun and your subject. And it turns it into a softbox. You still get the light of the sun coming through. You get all that beautiful natural light, especially when you're talking golden hour. But because of the fabric of the umbrella, it's going to soften that light and get rid of that sharp edge that sunlight lends to somebody's features. It softens the whole thing up. So if you can't get them into an area where they're in the shade and then use reflectors to bounce the sun onto them, you can use an umbrella as well. I have never seen it. I'm sure it's made, but I'm not big into umbrellas. I've seen white ones. I've got a couple of white ones, as a matter of fact, but I'm sure they make other colors as well if you wanted to pitch the light to a different color, or use some kind of plastic of the color that you're looking for inside the umbrella. So not pushed against the umbrella itself, but down at the bottom where the umbrella opens up and the light's coming through. So the light goes through that before it hits your subject, and you change the lighting on your subject. Of course, the other possibility too when you're outdoors shooting and you've got them tucked in is to use LED lights. So you can kick in the sun from whatever angle you can, and then you can add a little golden light from LED lights to add that golden hour touch to it if you need to shoot and it's not quite golden hour. So you have a lot of different tools that you can get, like I said, that you may not think about. I know a lot of people will think, well, if I'm going to be a photographer and I want to do motion, I'll just get a drone. Wrong. You can't fly drones over people unless people are involved in the shoot, and it's 250 grams, which doesn't give you a great platform to work from. And I know some photographers are probably going to do it anyway, but considering the FAA has finally decided to start cracking down on people doing that, a quick phone call and you could lose your license or be fined. It's not worth it, and these devices can be very dangerous if they drop down on somebody, which is why that caveat is in there that it has to be under 250 grams. Anything above 250 grams has to be certified, especially, and it has to have a recovery system that if something happens and it starts to plummet from the sky, it has a parachute, basically. So that it's not going to come crashing down on somebody, because if you're shooting from 100 feet up and that drone drops, you don't want that dropping on somebody. That actually happened at an event, and a child was injured by the propellers This is a public event. Everybody there was, the performance was licensed, but the drone didn't have a way of preventing itself from coming down, and they were too close to people, and it came down on this 7-year-old kid. Don't be the person who has to put that down on their insurance as injuries that they caused. But think about what it is that you want to do this year, and is there something new you'd like to try with it, right? And that's the whole beauty of having things that you can rent. If it's not inexpensive, like I talked on one of the podcasts, one of those balls that you can shoot through, those are usually pretty inexpensive, usually about somewhere between $30 and $100, I think I've seen them for. But beyond that, just having the ability to go play with stuff, right? We play with light, play with the tools, see what's out there, see what it could possibly be used for. Go look at one of the rental sites and just see what accessories and things that they've got. And if you don't understand what it is, look it up. Go to YouTube. Go see how somebody's used it before. And like I said, some of the stuff is make sure you pay attention to the weight and see how it goes. Those big heavy lenses, those beautiful low F lenses, in the 2.7, 3, 1.2 range there that are big, like a 400 millimeter, that is huge, and it's heavy, and it's expensive. And you got to make sure that the tripod that you've got matches it. And again, if you are renting your lens, make sure you rent a tripod that's going to be able to hold it, because the last thing you want to do is have the tripod give under the weight, tip forward because the lens that's on there, and damage the lens. So plan out not only what you want to do this year and what equipment you're going to need for it, but how you're going to get the equipment. And do you want to try something new this time? Is there something that you've always wanted to do that you want to do something a little differently now? For example, the Canon that I've got, it's a 5, and it allows you to take these hugely 100 and some odd megapixel camera picture. So what it does is you have to have a good tripod. You have to stand away from the camera. You have to have it set up, obviously, for this. And what you're taking a picture of can't move, because what it's going to do is take a series of pictures using the same motors and things that it uses to stabilize by shifting things just a little bit. So it's getting over 100 megapixel image out of your camera. Now, mine's cameras are 45 megapixel. It takes a little while for it to do it, and the picture is absolutely gorgeous. But the subject can't move because it's got to keep taking these pictures over and over again and stitching them together digitally. It's a massive picture. You can make a huge blow up of something like that. And I took a couple of the fort because the fort itself isn't moving. I took it from a distance so I could use a zoom lens to pull the fort closer and then just let the camera run. And it did. And it did a beautiful job of getting photographs out from that. Now, you're going to say, well, what could I use it for? Well, there's a lot of things you could use it for. If you think about it, especially anywhere where you have seasons, which is everywhere, and you have a beautiful fall foliage going on, imagine being able to take that at a 100 megapixel level. Now, from there, not only could you make a huge print of it, you could zoom that in digitally without losing any of that detail, right? You're cropping off the stuff you don't want, which every time you crop stuff off, obviously, you're losing megapixels. Got a 45 megapixel thing and you're cropping it down to 60%, you just lost 33% of or 40% of your megapixels that you had because you've cut them off. But if you're at 100 and you even went down to half, you're at 50. That's still a beautiful photograph. And you can make up for certain things, like if you were just couldn't get close enough to it, or you didn't have a big enough zoom for it, but you can let it sit there and take that picture and let it go to do the 100 megapixel. Again, it gives you something else that you can use for certain types of photography. You're never going to use it for a portrait. Nobody is going to be able to sit there. Well, most people are not going to be able to sit there and smile for the amount of time they have to for a 100 megapixel photograph. And I don't know why you'd want a 100 megapixel of somebody's face to begin with. But again, plan out what it is that you want to take and plan out new things that you want to try this year. Maybe you won't get to them this year. That's fine. Maybe you'll get to them next year. Maybe you'll just learn this year about what it takes to do what it is that you want to do. But take the time this year to learn and see what new things you can come up with. That's what I got for you guys this week. I will talk to you all next week.